Question for you.
Fire away.
When it comes to resharpening, I'd like to hear your interpretation of the role the commissioner plays versus the role the DE plays, and at what point in the process do the two come together?
Well, now I'm going to give you my volunteer perspective. My volunteer perspective is recharter is on my list to do, and I'm going to get it done. And I am a unit commissioner, just so you know. And I will go to that scoutmaster, and we will get the information that we need. And if my DE wants to help, that's wonderful. It is my primary responsibility, and I will get it done. And I'll go to the DE when I need him or her. But the DEs have got incredibly tough jobs. And if you guys don't appreciate the tough jobs that we ask DEs to do, we tell them to raise money, do school nights, do the recharter, run the day camps. I mean, we ask a lot of our professionals. So my theory is, as much of that heavy lifting that we can do, we've got to do as commissioners. I don't want to talk about, here's the line of duty, and I did my part, now where's your part? Our role is to see to it that it gets done, and we do whatever it takes to get it done. And if I can take some burden off my professional staff, I'll do it, every time. Simple answer. Other questions? Yes, sir.
I understand you also received an additional gift of $16 million for the bridge.
Absolutely. Let me tell you a little bit more about the property if you're interested. We've got about a $400 million budget on this property. And we did receive an additional $16 million gift to build one of the spans. We're in negotiations with a couple of other gifts from $10 to $25 million. We think we have about 130 of the $400 million already committed. This is going to be a phenomenal task. And I gotta tell you, we knew when we did this it was going to be hard. I have, earlier in the year, I actually have this postcard that I took with me to most of my speeches. And all it says across it is brave. Because when we sat down at the beginning of this term, 3 years ago, we said, you know, which point of the Scout Oath and law, particularly the Scout laws, do we really need to emphasize moving into the next 100 years? And we decided it was brave. We have got to be bold. And we said, we're going to be bold. And if we're going to be bold to control our destiny, by God, we're going to take some commitments down. And part of it was this facility. And we said, if we are brave and send that message, it's going to work because people will come to us. And they will. And we're going to get it funded. And we're going to get it paid for. But I'll tell you, I typically then transfer that message to us, to our councils, because we need some heroes. Every council needs some heroes. Every council needs someone to take a look at everything that's on your list. Everything that you think, man, if I were really brave, I would do this. And that would help the council. I would recruit this person, I would ask this person for money, I would find this way to do this thing, I would have this difficult conversation with that scoutmaster that I've been putting off. If I were brave, I would do X, Y, and Z. And I would have people fill those out on the postcard, and 6 months later, 4 months later, I mailed them back to them. I mailed back over 1,500 cards in the last year of folks who said, if I were brave, I'd do this. I'd swear on cards. But to your point, we were brave. We said, we're going to do this. This is a huge commitment, and we're writing a big check. But the money is coming in. We've got a lot of great asks out there. We have over 800 million in asks out. And we feel very confident that we're going to be able to pay for this property and be up and running. And by the way, in January, I'll be in Brazil. We'll be pitching the World Scout Movement. And we believe no one is bidding against us, so that we'll hold a North American Jamboree, Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. We'll hold a World Jamboree hosted by North America at that property in 2019. That's the end goal there as well. So it's going to be a phenomenal asset for us and for the movement. We should be able to run 50,000 kids a summer through High Adventure. And there's all sorts of other plans for that, including moving the National Museum there and doing a whole bunch of other things. So it's an extraordinary resource. But if we were going to take control of our destiny, we had to go do it. And we did. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Personally, I'd like to say thank you for taking the time for this weekend to come speak with us. Second of all, I work with the basic leader training for the council, and we get a lot of questions about the youth that turn 18 but want to stay in the movement, they go to college. The only position they can hold is assistant scoutmaster, which requires them to be able to do training here or somewhere to be able to hold that position. Is there any talk about creating any kind of position where they could be on, like in training in committee or something, so that they can actually do training online
let me take a different path with that. We're not talking about creating a new position, but what we are talking about is a national mandatory training program that every direct contact leader, including assistant scoutmaster, would have to be trained. Now, that sounds really good, but it's actually really hard to do logistically. Because one of the things we would have to do in order to accomplish that is have most of that training available online. So as we start requiring mandatory training, most, if not all of it, will shift to online. So it should solve your problem there. One of the challenges, and we piloted that in 5 councils across the country, and we're getting rates of test. Amazingly enough, trained leaders create better program. Kids advance and they stay. Every study shows us if a kid goes to summer camp, he stays with us 3 years. If the kid doesn't go to summer camp, he's gone. So, you know, we will be moving a lot of training online, and that should alleviate that issue, I hope. I hope. We can keep them involved in the Order of the Arrow and venturing and in other ways. Hopefully they'll stay involved as well. Because they're youth in Order of the Arrow and venturing until they're 21. Yes, sir.
Could you give us some guidelines from national as far as red, yellow, and green units? What the fine line is between?
You know, there's been some publications on that. I'll have to refer you to those because, you know, everybody's got, they tend to be more subjective, but we've got some parameters and some guidelines that we've published. Can't off the top of my head run them through. Questions or thoughts on the movement as a whole? Now, typically my Q&A goes about an hour, so I don't know what you've got. Yes, sir.
I know as commissioners, you spend a lot of time worrying about the units, worrying about the individual groups, getting their chartering done, and so we spend a lot of time working on their paperwork, and a lot of times we forget about our own, because we're so focused on them. Is there any way, has anyone ever thought of doing like a life membership where I can just write one check and be on the rolls forever?
You know what, I tell you, I actually chaired the task force into that issue. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you more than you want to know. When we did the fee increase from $10 to $15, you remember when we upped the registration fee? One of the things that we looked at was the potential of a life membership. And what as I talked to Scout executives across the country and others, it turned out to be a bad idea for a number of reasons. The first of which is, if we have to remove someone from membership, they can claim they've got a contractual obligation. Number 2, if you join here in Last Frontier Council, but you move to Central Florida, I don't know yet, the cross paperwork amongst the councils was going to be disastrously difficult. Do you have to go through the background check? Do you not have to go through the background check? What do we have to do there? And frankly, third, we want people thinking about us every year. We want people engaged, and we don't want folks on the rolls who are not participating and involved. That creates more of a problem than anything when you say, I've got all these adults in my unit, but none of them show up. You know, it just, as we analyzed it for a 6 month period, it created more problems than it solved. But there was a lot of movement behind that, and it didn't seem to solve the problem. But I certainly understand where you are. I always forget too. They call it and say, would you like to register in the movement? But eventually we get it done. But great question, and we have looked at that at length. Questions and thoughts? Movement, direction. This is your movement. I'm your national guy. I'm the guy who gets to talk to the customer. So tell me what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. Anything you want to know? All right. Wait, Charles.
I'll come up with one. Training, Philmont, commissioners. You want to comment about how that process is working?
Sure. Thank you for that incredible softball. We do commissioner training at Philmont every summer. We have 2 training opportunities coming up. In January, if anybody feels like going, and I'd love it if you did, we're doing a special commissioners training at the Sea Base. January at the Sea Base is pretty cool. It's nice down there. It's the 2nd week of January. We'll be doing commissioner training on that facility for a week, and then the 2nd week of Philmont training, we have the entire week just for commissioners. We had about 75 people come out last summer. Charles came out. We had about 75 people come out and train. Everyone is there. I'm there the whole week. All of my national staff is there the whole week. It is really good commissioner training, and if you haven't been to Philmont, truly you owe it to yourself. If you've never gone, you have to go see this place. I never went as a boy.